Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Akash Thing. This is Akash here, and today we are going to continue our journey on the Docker learnings. So we already got familiar with Docker basic commands, the installation and basic understandings of image containers and everything. Also we learned to use a Docker Hub. So today what we are going to do is I have created a my personal portfolio website using HTML file, and we will try to dockerize it and run via the container, and we'll also try to do kind of a reverse proxy so that we can expose that using some different port id to the internet, and we'll try to access through that. Right now it might be sounding quite difficult to understand, but once we will go through the complete tutorial, I think complete video, you will be able to understand it and you will get very much familiar with it. So on a high level, if you look, so we are going to dockerize our portfolio website using two different methods here. One is via the Nginx route, and second is via the Uvicorn plus FastAPI route, which is more Pythonic route. We will also try to understand the different commands that we use for both of them, the Docker file, and we will also see like in which case or when we should go with Nginx versus the Uvicorn route. So with that, let's get started. So first, let's see how our current website that is hosted on my local looks like. So you can see everything is looking good here. Now let's go and do the basic setup that is there, and then we can start with the first route in Nginx. So just have check double check if docker engine is running or not. So here you can see docker engine. So this is very important because since most of us are, personally I am like working with Windows machine, so it doesn't have Linux environment inside. So what this Docker desktop is trying to do is trying to connect this Windows machine with my Linux kind of environment via pipe kind of a thing. And that's where we are able to run the Docker images and containers as well. So double check always that your Docker desktop is running. Otherwise, you may not be able to create images using your Docker file. So you can also check it via the command prompt. So just open command prompt and hit Docker version, or just hit Docker info. So you can see for me it's working. So we have checked the basic requirement, and now we can move with the two approaches. And just to give you a little context in real terms, like what this Docker engine is. So it's like your kitchen. So you can only cook or create your images only when your kitchen is turned on, right? When your kitchen is shut down, you can't make any dish. So that's where this Docker engine comes in picture. Now let's go to the first approach. What is Nginx? So Nginx is a kind of uh, Docker image which is especially built for web server related task. So it's very specific purpose. So there are different kind of images, right? One is database related, one is Python related, one is front end related image. So that way, if we are just going to host some websites, or especially the static website, single page websites, so in that case, this Nginx is the best route because it's available again in multiple versions, and we are going to use the lightest version here, the alpine version, and which is just 5 MB of size. So this especially if you think it as in Nginx, it's like a kind of a shop that is already built for restaurant, right? If you're going to open a restaurant, you are not going to purchase a kind of bank or kind of a school kind of shop, right? Like you're not going to sell cloths in there, you're not going to sell machinery in there. You're going to cook something and sell that. So you're going to like grab a shop which is closer by, which is similar type. So that's where this Nginx comes into picture. Uh, and since we are going to have a single HTML file, so we are going to go with the lightest version of Nginx, that is Alpine. Of course, there are other version as well, so you can search that on the Docker hubs. Since I already searched, so you can see Nginx here, and there are multiple tags attached to it, and you can select any one of them, and based on that, the size of the image will vary. So mostly preferred is like Nginx Alpine or Nginx Stable. So these are like some of the preferred choice. Coming to the project structure, if we are going via this route, we just need Dockerfile and a HTML file, and that's all. So this is kind of a very, if you try to relate it, it's like a vending machine where you just insert your choice and it will give you the output. So there is no staff or anyone needed. So very simple, very easy. And then we can go through the Docker file. So let's go in the VS Code and see. So this is the Nginx approach, and here is my index.html. So again, no need to understand. It's already generated by AI, so you can also leverage that and generate it. And then this is the Docker file here. Now I've added multiple comments lines so that it will be easier for you to read and understand. But yeah, I will just go through it. So at first we are importing the Nginx Alpine image. So this Alpine is really helpful when like it's the different versions of Nginx is like if you just need 2 rooms of shop, then why you are going to uh, rent 10 rooms of shop, right? So based on your requirement, you would select the version. Now, once this image is set, then we are going to remove the existing HTML or web server related pages that are there in my HTML folder. Not my, but in the Nginx like image that we downloaded. So it comes with like, let's say if you hire the shop, there is a possibility that the previous shop owner might have left something. So you should clean that and then you settle yourself, right? So it's a similar thing. So we are trying to recursively, forcefully remove all the items that are there in the HTML folder. So this star represents all the files, all the folders that is there, and it won't ask for permission because we are doing forceful removal. Once that is done, we can copy our index.html and we can paste it into the same folder which we have just cleaned. And once that is done, we can expose it to port 80. So it tries to expose my, let's say I have opened the shop, but I need to pass the address, right? So this is kind of that only. So the container that will be running this Docker image. So it is on which port number it is hosted in that container. So this is that uh, port number, a kind of physical address. Here we have defined uh, all the lines, what it means. And then the end line that is CMD nginx dash G daemon of. So what this is doing is like once the shop number is also defined and the user comes to the shop, he will open the door and order something. So this is that only. What the first thing that gets ordered. So basically nginx command runs my web server, and then daemon of is a kind of global parameter that we are passing. So to pass that, we need this dash G. So that's where we are passing this. Now, why we are trying to turn off the daemon? It's because by default it's turned on, and when it's turned on, the server starts running, and that too in the background. And Docker thinks like Docker is not able to recognize that it's still running, and what happens is the container runs and then stops running because it sees like nothing is there, so just stop. But when we try to turn off the daemon, the container, like the the image that we hosted, it runs in the foreground. So container keeps on running because it sees that something is there. Let's keep the container on only. It is just trying to run the web server in the foreground so that it can keep on running unless someone hard stop the container. So if we don't give this, what will happen is like the container starts and then stops automatically because it feels that the Nginx server that started running in the background, which is still running in the background, but somehow the container is not able to identify it because nothing is happening. So it tries to shut it down. So to avoid that kind of thing, this is the like default command that we try to run here. Now let's try to build this container and try to see the image and then host that via the container. So let's first try to build this image. To do that, let's open the terminal. Here is my terminal. Let's navigate to Nginx approach, check the directory, and then run the build command. For now, you can see there is no image. Once I run this portfolio Nginx, it starts creating the image. And I think you are already familiar with the command. We have covered it multiple times. So Docker build is used to create a image, and this dot is trying to recognize the kind of Docker file in that directory. Next, we can check whether the image is created using Docker images. You can see the image is created and the file size is 26 MB and the disk size it occupies is 93 MB. Same thing we can see here as well, right? Now let's try to trigger this container using this command. And let's also try to understand what kind of port mapping we are doing here. So we generally to try to run image using Docker run -d and the image. So what that does is like it runs the container in the background. Now the first thing we are doing here is like we are running this container, but with a different, like we are also assigning the container a name, Nginx portfolio. So you will see this name on the container now. Next, we are also trying to map the port 8080:80. So 8080 is something that the internet or anyone else is going to see, while 80 is the port number on which this particular web server is running inside the container. So this will not be visible to any user. So hope it's clear. So let's try to build this. Let's try to run this image, and you can see the container is live now. You can see the image name is here, portfolio, and this is the container name. Let's try to go inside. Fine. So let's try to trigger this port and see the website. So you can see this was the local website, and if you try to inspect, go in the network, just refresh this. See this index.html web address. You can see it's giving me path to my local. Now same thing if I try to do here, it won't show me localhost colon 80, but it will show me 8080. So that's where we are able to protect our actual port number. Here you can see, and there is no way to retrieve that colon 80. So this is where like reverse proxy comes into picture, and it helps uh, in hiding my actual port number. And there are other use cases as well, like load balancing and uh, providing security and many other things. We'll go there in later videos. Yeah. So now you can see it's running. Let's keep it running. Now let's try to understand the second approach before we close this. Close this as in like before we stop this container. So let's come back to our this page and let's jump to the Uvicorn approach. So again, in the previous approach, Nginx was the engine, but in this approach, Uvicorn is the engine, and it always tried to run the Python kind of application, and that application will then trigger or display me the web page or something or database or do the authentication or forward me to a certain API. So everything will happen via the Python application. So this is where this Uvicorn comes into picture. Now let's just understand Fast API. So Fast API is nothing but it's like a receptionist in a hotel. So once you reach the receptionist, you ask for any inquiry, and it helps you navigate to that particular thing. Like let's say you ask for swimming pool address, or you ask for kitchen address or banquet address. So they give you the direction or the like a path or route through which you can go there. So it's similar. So whatever the functionalities that are there in your Python application, so this Fast API provide or try to connect that via a route. So hope it's clear. Now the project structure is going to be a little complicated compared to the previous one. So here we will need additional requirement file and the main file. Why? Because this main file is going to navigate me to the HTML file. This is our application file, you can say. And then requirement file is because this main file may be needing the Fast API, Uvicorn, so we need to install all of them. So let's try to see the requirement file, what all things we are going to have. It's like gathering everything, all the ingredients before you start making the actual food. So similar way, we are trying to install the requirements. And then this is my application file, actual application file or the main.py file. So at first we are trying to import the Fast API and related functionalities. So the important functionality we are going to use is the file response and the Fast API. So Fast API is nothing. It creates the kind of instance of the application. It tells that, okay, this Fast API is initiated and it's running. And then we have this file response, which tries to read this index.html file and return the user. And this app.get, this is nothing but uh, when I run the localhost colon 8080, then if I hit slash in the end, forward slash, then this particular response will be generated. Here we have additional one line app.mount, which is like routed to the slash static. Again, this is not very important. Uh, we have used kept it here in case like if there are some functionality that are there in index.html which is having some dependency on css or some other static pages kind of thing. So some of the dependency that we don't want to create uh, bad response or failure. So to avoid that, uh, some of the like this at a static path, some of the those functionalities are already there by default. So those functionality we are trying to just mount from there. Again, this is not compulsory. This is not needed. We will run our main.py without this as well. Coming to the Docker file. So there is a lot of change. First is like we are not importing Nginx. We are importing Python, and that to the 3.11 slim version. Second, we are creating a working directory app, and then we are copying our requirements file there. Once the requirement files is copied, we are trying to install that requirement file. Again, we don't want any caches, so that's why we have this command. And then we are, after having the installations, we are copying all the other files, whether HTML file or any other file. We could have copied it earlier as well, but why we are doing this? Because we don't want to run the installation again. Let's say if my HTML file got changed, uh, then if I follow this approach, the layer 1 to layer 4 will not be disturbed when we are creating the image again. So these things will directly be read from the Docker cache. Only from this command, the things will start executing. So it will take very less time during the second run. But if we do this installation after copying, then what will happen? Every time we have to install all the requirements again and again, because there will be a change in the just in the file, and then we have to execute everything below that. Then again we are exposing it to 8000, which will be like a container port on which this image will be running. And then here we are executing the command uvicorn main colon app. So this is like starting the uvicorn engine, and then we are trying to map the uvicorn application to our main file, so that it understands all the which is my application file where all my functionalities are there. And here we are specifically telling that use host as 0 colon 0 0.0.0.0. So in Nginx, it's set by default. We don't have to specifically ask it to use this, but here we have to specifically ask. And if we don't give this particular thing, what will happen is like after we create this image, we will try to run it via the container, right? Now we want to test whether my application is running or not in my local service. Now my local system computer is different from the container, right? So 127.0.0.1 is something the local host for the container, but my system is different, so they will not match. That's where like we have to allow all the like web interfaces that are there. So to allow all of them, we are just using this. And then port 8000 is something we are trying to map it to. So again, it's kind of gathering all the requirements and setting everything up before we start cooking our image or cooking our stuff. So here you can see like what's the actual difference which I was trying to say. This is default localhost server of the container, and this listens on all interface. So whenever we are try to run that uh, container like port address on our system, then also it will be able to execute that. Something like this one will allow only the users of a same building to use the resources of a shop, but this will allow like even the people from the road or the street can have access to the shop. So there will be a different gate. Now this was the thing I was talking, why we should have this order. Now let's try to run this as well. So let's go to the VS Code. Let's open a new terminal. Now let's close this one. So here I have created all the files. Let me just walk through it. HTML is same. Then we have a requirement file. Then we have a main file, which we already gone through. And here you can see I have commented this app.mount. Then we have the Docker file. You can see everything is same, right? So now we are going to run this. So we are able to, okay, there is an error because we are not in the correct directory. So you can see right now this is my directory. So I need to move to the correct directory first. So checking. Yeah, this is the correct directory. Now let's try to build the image. You can see I am able to build the image. Let's check the images. There are two images, and you can see the size difference between both of them. It's quite like almost twice or more than that. Same thing you can see here as well. So the Python version, which is this one, is much bigger. Now let's try to run the container. Let me just change the port number to which we want to expose it to internet. So now it will be exposed on 7000 port number. Rest everything is same, right? Which we have done earlier. You can see this is also running. Let's go to the container section and here let's try to hit this. You can see the port number is 7000. Nowhere we are seeing that 8000, right? And here also you can check that 7000. So we are not able to see the 8000 port on which it's running on the container actually. So yeah, I think this was it. And we can also try to see the log in both cases. Let's see how the log is coming. So this is the command. Let's try to run. So this is the log I got. Then same thing, let's try to run here as well. This is the log here. So yeah, I think here it's clear that application started, and then you can see Uvicorn running on 8000 port, and then the user accessed and it got 200 response. If we try to access it again, let's try to again check the log. You can see two hits, so two like 200 we got. So 200 is nothing but successful response. So now I think we are done with hosting the portfolio via container, and that too with two different approach. You can see the memory usage and disk usage as well for the two containers. And we can also check it here using the Docker stats. So let's try to directly do that in the command count. You can see two containers are running and their memory uses, and also we can see the network input output and other details, CPU usage as well. For Nginx you can see the CPU usage is very low and the memory usage also very low. Now let's come back to our conclusion. So what we learned is like we created the same portfolio in two different containers or hosted it in two different containers. Now, if you try to understand it in real world, like there are two different softs that are running the same business, you can say, but they don't know about each other. And of course, they are using different kind of soft to run that. One is using the Nginx soft, another is using the Uvicorn or Python soft. If you look at the sideways side comparison, file wise, Nginx is easier to set. Then language wise, this is C based and this is Python based. Uh, for HTML, it is directly configured, but in this we have to pass it via root. Then base image, quite small and quite big. Then port wise, Nginx is 80 port exposed and this one is on 8000 port. So again, it's preferred to host web server on 80 port or 8080 port, and it's preferred to host Python related server on this 8000 port. Then request log, here we can see minimal, here we can set detail, and then this is the thing that is very critical for this 0.0.0.0 host is very critical for Uvicorn plus FastAPI, which while it's already configured for Nginx. And then the only advantage in terms of Uvicorn and FastAPI, it's like having functionality to add multiple APIs. Here, it's just limited to a kind of HTML page or a web development thing. But here we can have database or API or AI services or backend services. So there can be multiple kind of APIs we can host here. So think of it like Nginx is just like a vending machine with no stuff, but Uvicorn plus Fast API is a complex system, kind of a proper set restaurant with multiple stuffs. So with that, I think you are very familiar, like when to use which one. And yeah, this is the difference between the Docker command. You can see it's mostly similar. With that, hope you learn Nginx and it got clear. And also you learned about Uvicorn and this Fast API. So hope you will able to understand how you can host your portfolio website using Docker in the container. So yeah, with that, let's close this session for today. And again, let's come with a different video around this. Let's try to understand the volume piece in our next video. So with that, let's wrap up this session. Before going, just subscribe, like, and comment on this video. Also, feel free to ask any question if you have and provide any feedback. With that, thank you everyone. Thank you.